Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to continue on our process of tearing this skid steer down to the bare frame. As you can see, we've already got a lot of stuff off, and there's some things missing that didn't come off in the last video. So let's get into that and show you what I did yesterday. So yeah, I came out yesterday and pulled the engine. As you can see, left a big gaping hole in the back. I really was able to pretty much keep everything self-contained on the engine. So I didn't feel I needed to video all that because really everybody's machine is going to be a little bit different. This Kohler engine that was in here was not even an original engine for this machine. So, you know, to go through the process of what I disconnected and where and everything really is probably not going to help anybody else. I was able to disconnect all the controls for this engine so that I was able to keep them with the engine, if that makes any sense. So really I could put the fuel pump suction line into a tank, hook the battery cables up, and I could start the engine as is right here. I didn't disconnect any of the wiring. Basically I just removed the key switch, the start switch, the throttle lever, the choke lever, and the fuel line from the machine itself. The rest of it is all just self-contained in this rat nest of wiring here. So I did that really for two reasons. One, all of this wiring is going to be gone through at some point anyway. Two, in the event that I decide to change the power plant for this tractor, which I haven't fully committed to yet, if I decide to sell this engine, it's a running unit as is. So obviously whoever buys it would want to clean this stuff up as well, but I can demonstrate it and show it running as in the condition that it's in right now. So with that being said, we're really down to pretty much not much left. Today's video we're going to go through and try to get the rest of this console area and the hydraulic pumps removed. So one thing I do want to show you when I remove the engine, this is the drive coupling from the engine to the pumps, and you can see there's quite a bit of wear and play in there. So the splines on this pump shaft are worn, as are the splines on this gear coupling. The gear coupling is easy enough to replace, but I don't know as though I'll be able to make many repairs to that spline. So my thought process is I may at some point, there's a keyway in here for a an Allen set screw to hold that coupling on the shaft. I might remove that completely and just drill straight through the shaft and out the other side of the coupling, so that basically you would still have the gear teeth to kind of hold it in place, but you basically have a bolt going through the whole thing. My fear is that eventually these teeth are just going to continue to wear and eventually strip, so the engine will run, but it's not going to turn the pump. And I don't want to have to deal with pulling an engine out again to fix that when we can do it now. So again, once I get it apart a little further, we'll make the decision of how we're going to repair that. So obviously, Kohler engine. If anybody has any idea what model this is, I would appreciate it if you could leave a comment below. It is a opposing twin, meaning the heads are at the 3 and 9 o'clock position. I don't really see any other kinds of stamps. There's a casting up here that says C140, probably means nothing at all. Typically, that's my neighbor Jim. Jim, if you're watching, how's it going? Typically there's a plate on this cover somewhere that would have the model and serial number, but I don't see it. Here's the other side, a filter, starter relay, starters at the bottom. So if you know what model this is, like I said, please comment below, let me know, because in the event that I end up using this engine, I'm going to want to go through and freshen up some things. Definitely needs new head gaskets, carb rebuild, might do some rings. I don't know, it runs pretty good. I know we had some issues in the past where I was not able to start this, and I kind of fiddled with it for a bit, and I ended up replacing the points and condenser and was able to start. So I do have a video of it running, which I'll hopefully insert here. So as you can see, it does run good in terms of not smoking or anything like that, but there are some issues with however the governor assembly is on this engine. Sometimes when it gets loaded or you ramp up the throttle, it kind of falls flat a little bit. So I'm sure it's something we could correct easily enough, but I don't know what parts to get until I figure out what model Kohler engine this is. I want to say it's like a KT or a YT. I don't know. I'm not a Kohler expert. I got some research to do, but if you know what it is, please comment below. I'd appreciate it. So as I said, today's video is going to be basically getting this cross member off, removing the filter assembly, getting this cross member apart, disconnecting linkages, and obviously I'm going to have to tag some of these hoses so I know where they go, and I'm hoping that I can remove these pumps all as one assembly. They're in pretty good shape. They don't appear to be leaking anything, so I don't have intentions of rebuilding them. I'm kind of a advocate of if it's not broke, don't fix it. And so yeah, I've never had any issues with it driving because of these pumps. So really they're just going to get removed, cleaned, and repainted, but it's allowing us access down to the drive motors, the hoses below. So anyway, I'm going to start labeling some of this stuff, and once I get to a good point where we're about to remove the pumps, I'll get you back in the video again. And as always, before you start tearing these apart, make sure you've got them tagged whichever way is most convenient for you. So all these fittings are just numbered so that I know where they go. I've also made numbers on the fittings themselves. I'll go ahead and put some on the casting. It's going to get cleaned up and painted, but what I'll do is I'll take photos of these so I know that this fitting is 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and so on. So I'll be able to look back at the photos and know that tag 13 is going to go to this port here. Alright, this old girl making me work today. So I've got all the lines disconnected from the pumps on both sides. There's a couple hard lines here that disconnect from one side to the other, so I've left those for now. Disconnected the right and left linkages for the drive mechanism on the pump, and then I removed the foundation bolts. So there were 3 in the back, 9/16, and there was 1 up here in the front. So the back middle bolt is still in there. Oh, there we go, I got it out now. So I should be able to kind of finagle this thing back. I think that's going to be the easiest way. Backing out of the way here. And looks like I might still be connected on something up here. What do we got? There we go. Alright. Still feeling like there's a hose on there somewhere. I'm telling you, this is easy to miss something. Nope. Just being stubborn. Alright, there we go. There's the hydraulic pump. Set this off to the side. So here's the pump assembly. Remember, this is the drive gear from the back. We got the, I think it was the right hand steering pump, left hand steering pump, and then the auxiliary pump on the front. At least I believe that's what that is for the loader and bucket. So yeah, like I said, it's got some oil and grease on it, but it's really not too bad. I didn't have any problems with driving or loader operations, so I don't think that there's any issues with the pumps, and they're really not that hard to get back out, so I'm not even going to mess with those in this resto. Basically, we're just going to clean everything up and paint it, and you know, we'll keep an eye on things, monitor to make sure they don't start to leak. But again, the biggest concern for us here was all these drive hoses down here at the bottom that if any of these blow out, you can see they're extremely hard to get to. I mean, even with all this stuff removed, it's still just a tangled octopus nest of crazy hoses and tubes. So we're going to pull all these hard lines out too. We'll get everything cleaned up, and like I said, we're going down to a bare frame. So hopefully this thing will last many more years to come. So we'll get some more hoses out and see what we're dealing with. So I'd really like to start getting the rest of these hoses out before I pull out the drive motors. This steering assembly comes off pretty easy. It looks like just these two bolts here, and disconnect this. It's like a little strut here in the front, kind of gives you spring pressure. Of course everything's disconnected now, but kind of keeps this steering mechanism in the neutral position. Anyway, on this skid steer, these foot pedals are what control your loader, raise and lower, and bucket tilt. So they're connected to a valve assembly underneath, and basically that valve assembly would be like the valve assembly on the side of a typical loader, right? You have your two levers for raise, lower, and tilt and roll. So that's tucked up underneath because it's foot driven instead of hand driven. So there's two panels here on the top. We're going to remove those just to kind of give us a little better access. One, in order to get that valve assembly out, and two, so that I can see the other ends of the hoses, because those hydraulic hoses, some of them were going from that aux pump in the front down to that valve body. So need to get it all apart, and I'd rather have those plates off so that I can see it a little better. I can label everything a little better. I've had to tinker with that valve assembly in the past. I was helping a friend out move some dirt at their yard. I came back home, I unloaded it, and I drove it into the garage, and I think it's this right one. Yeah, this right one. If you push it all the way forward, it puts the loader arms in a float position, so that basically there's no down pressure, up pressure, it's just dragging, like if you're in a back drag or something. Anyway, I pulled into my garage and I pushed it forward into that float position, and I guess it moved the valve rod too far forward. And on these, I'll show you eventually when we get it apart, but there's little little metal discs with like clips that hold the discs in. Well, I guess the clip was loose, and when the valve rod went through to that disc, instead of stopping it, it pushed that clip out and the disc itself and dumped hydraulic fluid all over the place. So fortunately that was in my garage, and fortunately I was able to get a new clip and get that resolved. So we'll see that when I get to it, but yeah, just removing all the access covers so it's easier to get to everything. And we're back. Thanks to the magic of video editing, you didn't have to see me struggle through all that. So one thing I did want to point out, besides how nasty it is on here, these are the linkages for the foot pedals, for the auxiliary control block assembly, if that's the right name. But a funny thing I wanted to show you was, looking in here, you can see the John Deere green paint, and then there's more of like a lime green paint under here. And underneath, these are the foot panels, the floorboard panels. These are the controls for the pedals one on the top. And you can see this like a fluorescent lime green color. That is more on this side too. So that color is the color of the Owatonna, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Mustang skid steer loaders. So Owatonna made skid steers in the 60s and 70s, and maybe beyond, but John Deere at that time, so this is like a mid to late 70s model, did not make their own skid steers at that time. So what they did was they contracted Owatonna to build them some skid steers. So I'm thinking this one maybe got sent through their paint booth and got switched to be a John Deere. I'm not sure, and it's not an Owatonna painted like a John Deere. It's got a John Deere serial tag on it. Manufactured for Deere and Company, made in USA. So I don't know. Whatever they did, it's interesting. So, you know, maybe the assembly line, they painted them all that light green color and then diverted off for John Deere to respray, or maybe they just couldn't keep up with the demand for the Deere ones and had to repaint some of theirs later. I'm not sure. I thought it was kind of interesting though to see that that color under here. So I thought at first when I pulled the panels maybe someone just replaced the panel with the foot levers or something. And but to see it on the frame under here, then that just tells me that at one point it was painted that color. So I'm sure we'll find more of it once we start getting in there and grinding and stuff. But anyway, as you can see, we got a lot better access up here. There's an inlet and outlet hose, and then underneath, let me see if I can get this off the tripod here. Sorry about that. Underneath here, you can see there's 4 more hoses. So that's the valve assembly I was talking about earlier. So I'll get these other hoses labeled, removed, and I'll probably take that valve assembly out. I'm going to go through it, make sure everything's good on it as well. So I disconnected all the hoses in the back, took out these 3 bolts that held the valve assembly up, and we'll pull this big octopus out. So as you can see, this is just a nasty mess. And these are some of the hoses that I was telling you about, where hopefully you can see that, where this rubber is just all cracked and deteriorated. These things have probably never been changed. And this is the kind of stuff that's going to leave you with a bad day. I went through before I disconnected them. You can see this one says A, B, C, D. This one here was number 19. That connected up in the front right of the pump. And then this was the oil filter inlet rear side of the engine, number 20. So 6 hoses going in this bad boy. I'm going to show you the part that I had to fix before. I was telling you about that time that I had overextended the loader detent to put the bucket in a float position, and on the back of this valve assembly there's a couple, I guess I need a screwdriver here, there's a couple rubber covers that go on here. And pop those off. You can still get these, so I'm going to replace these. Alright, I'm just going to take the one off for now. And you can see back here, woo, this is like an octopus for real. Anyway, there's I guess this is the one that must have come off, because that one looks different. Let me pop this one off real quick. I am getting hydraulic fluid all over everything. Now you can see why people never do this. They just run these things into the ground until they don't want to work anymore. Alright, so let me move the camera for a better view. Alright, so on this left hand side you can see this clip inside here, and there's that metal plate behind it. Well, that clip had popped out and that metal plate had popped out and that valve came out, and yeah, it was not a good day. It was quite the mess. Even more of a mess than this. So glad to have this thing apart and out. Get all these hoses changed. So I'll go ahead and clean up this mess here. But as you can see, we're slowly starting to have less of a mess to deal with. So I'll go ahead and get these hoses pulled out. I've got them all in this trough over here for now. So all the hoses are labeled. They'll be in that trough. I'll go through and drain them out completely. Spray a little brake cleaner through them just so it doesn't make a mess when I go to the hose shop. And yeah, one of these days here I'll drop all of them off to get new hydraulic hoses made, because I love spending tons of money on this stuff. I think I've said in other videos, hoses, who knows, prices are all over the place, but they're typically like 15 to 30, 35 each. Of course, that's there are exceptions to that. Bigger, longer hoses. Some that have specific fittings or specialty fittings are going to cost you more. But it's still cheaper than going to like Tractor Supply and buying generic hoses that are going to be too long or too short. These are all custom made, and you know they're going to fit. So, all right, let me clean this up and get the rest of the hoses off and see where we're at. So yeah, I removed that rubber hose. This cross member here is what keeps the fluid level equal in both chain cases. And yeah, I popped that hose off, not realizing that, yeah, I didn't take the oil out. So, note to self, if you're going to do this, before you remove all the hoses, go ahead and drain the hydraulic fluid from the chain case first. It'll save you a big mess. As always, learn from my mistakes. Alright everybody, I think that's going to do it for today's video. We got a lot done. We got the floor pans removed, auxiliary control valve, all the steering assembly, the hydraulic pumps, every single hydraulic hose has been removed. All that's left are the drive motors, and we're going to have to pull the tires off to get the hubs out and remove the chain assemblies inside. I do want to put new chain drives on here, at least the chains themselves. Hopefully the sprockets are in good shape, and we'll go from there. Everything will be new. So yeah, pretty soon we'll be getting in here and wire wheeling, getting all the rust and paint off. I really wanted to get this frame blasted, but unfortunately my trailer is full of all kinds of junk and this thing's in the way, and I don't think that injection pump's coming back for a few more weeks. So it is what it is. We'll make do with what we got. Maybe I can at least get everything cleaned up and in primer, and then hopefully we'll have a nice warm weekend coming up that I can shoot some green. So anyway, making lots of progress. So I appreciate you watching. Have a safe week.